Bonjour, bonjour tout le monde et vadedi. I epi dize epi tapu Ram Shop Talks. Welcome everyone. It is Friday at 10 a.m. and it is time for another episode of Ram Shop Talks. So today we will be talking about intergenerational wealth. And interesting enough, I was able to figure out how to combine those two, the culture part of our episode along with our legal portion of the episode to both correlate on the same thing. So, Sadi, I just have coffee in my cup. It is 10 o'clock and my coffee does not have anything in it. Okay, so in St. Lucia, St. Lucia was originally settled by the Arawaks and the Caribs, and they were for all intents and purposes, Native Americans. And then the Spaniards came in and took over, and of course the British and the French came in and fought for a while till the British won. And the British ended up settling St. Lucia, and they ended up owning all of St. Lucian land. And so once the British left, St. Lucia was, of course, colonized by the British. African slaves were brought in, and when the slaves were free, the slaves were afforded the opportunity to purchase land. So my great somebody bought land from the crown. And because of the fact that St. Lucia did not have a clear estate planning or proper transfer of wealth, what ended up happening is now generations just kind of inherited property from their prior generations, and they stayed on the property, but there was no actual transferring of proper title. So the home that I grew in, the land that my mom raised us on, we've always known it belonged to our family, but what we found out, now that we are trying to have clear title, is we can't figure out who actually owns this land because we can't tell at what point the property was transferred, and whatever paperwork that was there has been lost. And so for us, it'll be really difficult to unravel this so that we can protect this land that my ancestors bought and paid for and worked and toiled on, so that my kids and my niece and my nephew can enjoy it and have for their lives. So just going through this experience with my family got me thinking. One of the things that we don't talk about very often in estate planning, we talk about the fact that if you do estate planning, then you protect what you've worked for your family. You keep your family out of probate, and you also, keep them from fighting because there's a clear plan of what to do, right? And as you can see, I've completely transitioned from the culture part of this this episode into the legal part. So one of the things that we don't talk about is the fact that proper estate planning helps you secure into the intergenerational transfer of wealth. One generation works really hard and starts to acquire wealth for themselves, and they create an estate plan and create a vehicle for those for their asset, their wealth to transfer. And the second generation who inherits that wealth, works and adds to that wealth, creates estate plan or uses the estate plan that's already in place and passes it on to their children and onto their children and onto their children. And we have seen that with some of the wealthiest families and also the oldest, wealthiest families in the United States. The Carnegies come to mind, and just name one of the wealthy families that you can think of, and that's how they were able to pass on their wealth. And what I have been, as we're doing this whole process, and especially for what's been going on. So I recently read a statistic that between 50 and there were a few surveys that I was looking at. So between 50 and 70% of African Americans pass away without any kind of estate planning. So what I just preface this whole statistic by is saying that if there is proper estate planning, then what you end up doing is securing the transfer of wealth from one generation to another. So if there is no estate planning, what ends up happening is every generation has to start over again and creating wealth for themselves. And then when that happens, you end up having to go through probate. So much of the wealth that was generated ends up going towards costs of probate, go towards lawyer fees, and then because there is no actual vehicle for transferring that, for protecting that asset, it ends up getting used and ends up getting spent and it doesn't end up being passed on to the next generation. So what I wanted to talk to you guys today about is the benefit of estate planning for securing wealth within African American communities. It goes along with the conversation that we're all having. We all want equality. We want police reform. We want to do away we want to shed light on police brutality. We're asking for all of this stuff. Going hand in hand with all of this is having a plan on how we are going to ensure that the future is secure, not only for ourselves, but for generations to come. So wealth is defined by you. What do you consider to be wealth? Maybe you have an IRA. Maybe you have a 401k. Maybe you just have life insurance. You own your home. Any of those assets that you've been able to acquire in the United States is wealth. And you have the opportunity to hold on to that asset and then to pass that asset on to your family with proper estate planning. So what do I mean by proper estate planning? Based on the state you're in, and I could only speak for California because I'm only licensed to practice in California. In California, when you own a home or when you have assets that exceed $166,000, if you come into my office, I more often than not recommend a trust. If there are minor children in that family, we talk about creating subtrusts for your minor children. So your minor children are not inheriting money outright if something were to pass away, if you were to pass away and they've inherited all this money. That's one way of protecting your children's wealth for them, right? But out of that process, in addition to transferring that wealth, what you're also showing your children is the process of protecting and transferring wealth from one generation to the next, right? So for us, for my family, we created an estate plan. My children are going to inherit what we have when we pass away. And what I am hoping that they've seen, because of what we did, because of how they see when we pass away, how everything is so nice and smooth, that they're gonna want to do it for their families because they realize the gift that we gave to them. And then when they do it for their families, then their families will do it for their families, and we will have started this process of transferring wealth from one generation to another. I'm not wealthy, so when I talk about wealth, I'm not talking about millions and multi-millions of dollars. I'm saying if you have acquired something in this family, that you're not only creating wealth for yourself, but you're creating it for the future generation. And that is how we are going to ensure that we're securing our futures for our kids and grandkids and going forward. That is how we're gonna give them a step up. It's like every generation should not have to start working hard, start all over again. We have the ability to change that. And it's interesting because estate planning is such a vehicle that we don't look to as a means to do that. We don't. We think about it. When I talk to people, a lot of people say, well, I don't need to do estate planning because I don't own anything. I don't have any wealth. I have nothing to pass on. But like I said, wealth is how you define it. You've worked hard, you've been putting money into your 401k, you have an IRA, you've secured, you got some savings accounts. That is wealth. And that is something that if your children were to inherit in an estate plan, can give them a little bit of a step up. It means that they're not starting off fresh. which means that they can then turn around and do it for their children and their children and their children. So I invite all of you guys, all you viewers, to consider looking at estate planning as a means to pass on wealth and secure your wealth and secure your family's wealth, to start that process of that intergenerational transfer of wealth. And to that end, I will be launching a product. So an attorney in Houston started this grassroots effort as her way of helping to help with the her way of helping with Black Lives Matter. Like, what can she do as an attorney to help with that, and realizing that we as attorneys are in a position to actually do, you know, some great things. And one of her ways was to offer free estate plans to African American families in and around her community. And she put a call out for other attorneys across the country to sign up and do the same. So I answered the call in California. Thank you at the Just In Case Lawyer in Effie for spearheading this movement. I am excited, and we will be launching at the law office of Jen A. Meyer a initiative to offer 2 free estate plans to an African American family in the local area meaning Dana Point, San Juan, San Clemente. And honestly, if you're in California, then you can qualify, because I have clients all around California. And that is one of the ways that I am going to be helping with this initiative. Like I said, I did it for my family. I invite you to do it for your family. If you guys have any questions about estate planning, of how to get started, if you're unclear about the benefits, pros and cons, whether you should have a lawyer or not, you know, I talk about all this stuff. So you can definitely reference any of my prior videos of Ram Shop Talk where we've discussed this, or you can email me your questions. I am happy to answer it. Like I said, I truly believe that going hand in hand with the fight for equality in this country is making sure that when we do get equality, which we will eventually get equality in this country, especially with all of what's been going on, which is beautiful to see. All of the mobilization out there, I think it's amazing. I think that we like I said last week, we are on a precipice. I truly believe it. But going hand in hand with that is making sure that when we do get there, that we are arming ourselves and our beneficiaries and our generations that will come after us with a means to actually compete in this country. Because what I see, which the truth is, the statistic didn't shock me that 50 to 70% of African Americans are not estate planning, because the majority of my clientele is Caucasian. It's white. You know, they have been the ones who have had wealth in this country. They have been the ones who've seen their families partake in estate planning. They've been the beneficiaries of proper estate planning. So they're the ones who are coming in and doing it for their families. And so I invite you all to take on the challenge. Last week I said educate ourselves. This week I'm saying let's take on the challenge to create estate plans so that we can start that process of passing on wealth from one generation to another. I thank you guys. I'm gonna give you a moment to ask any questions if you have them. So I'm gonna chill here for a sec and drink my coffee, because I know that there's usually a lag, and you can listen to some music while we wait. So what questions do you have about passing on wealth from one generation to another? Hey Tess, hey Key, hey Daniela, welcome. Alright, so it looks like no one has any questions. That's alright. You can always email me your questions if you do have them, or you can DM them, or even just put them in the comments below. I see them, I read them after all of this. And so and for my family and my friends out in states who are not in California, where I cannot help you, but you want to actually embark on this journey, hit me up. I have a network of estate planning attorneys throughout the country where I can hook you up with someone who will be able to help you get started. So, where I'm today, sweetheart, I don't know. I'm just drinking coffee. Hi, Dee. Auntie loves you. All right, so I am going to hop off. I thank you for coming in and supporting our Rum Shop Talks. We look forward to seeing you next week for another episode of Rum Shop Talks. And if there's any particular topics that you want to learn about St. Lucia or estate planning, just let me know and I will be happy to address them on our next future upcoming episodes. So enjoy your Friday, have a great weekend, and I'll see you next week. Bye.